Okay. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. After a long, extended period of technical malfunction, I am here with the one and only Mikkel. Is it Mikkel or Michael or what is it? How do you go by?
Mikkel.
Mikkel?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a nice biblical name there.
It is a bit flat. Usually foreigners put all sorts of inflection on my name that doesn't exist in my native language. You seem to be lagging a bit.
Did you ever see the movie Euro Trip?
Yes, I did. I watched it, I think, when it came out. One of my friends brought it over and we watched it. Yeah.
Do you remember there's a storyline on there where he's communicating with a girl and he doesn't realize she's a girl?
Yeah.
And
it
turns out her name was Michael, but it was like I don't know, whatever.
It was Mika. Mika.
Okay. And where are you calling out of, real quick?
I'm calling from Denmark.
Denmark. Okay. See, are you guys the ones who gave us the Vikings, or was that Norway?
Well, it's a whole thing, Scandinavian thing. I think mostly it was close to where I live. There are some old settlements, Viking settlements. So, but they were also Norwegian and Swedish, and this whole Scandinavian thing.
That's kind of ironic because those people were known for being quite violent, and now those countries are all peaceful and pacifist.
They were violent when they were out among foreigners. When they were home, they were just farmers.
They're just farmers. Okay.
So yeah, they went all over and pillaged, and yeah.
Right.
That's this game they played when they would cut off the top of the head of people, and then they'd play football with it.
Oh my God! American football or European football?
No, with the feet. They'll kick it around.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Okay. So, my name is Isaiah Diesel, and I'm from America. You're from Denmark, and
yes.
And I'm a Christian. But can you tell me real quick before we get started, if you have any religious affiliation, or what is your worldview, the way you see the world?
Well, the thing is, my country has a state religion, but I've never been religious. And I realized for the past couple of years, or maybe I'm not baptized or confirmed or anything, which is the norm here. But I slowly realized in my 20s, I think, and I'm 46 now, that I was an atheist. Or
you're an atheist, okay. And so, on a scale from one meaning you positively know that God exists, and 7 being that you know that God does not exist, where would you rate on that
scale?
Yeah.
Well, 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Okay, so that's a pretty soft. That's a pretty soft. You might call it agnostic or a lowercase a.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes I don't know if you've seen this grid thing where you can be an agnostic atheist. I'm not positively stating that I know that God or gods don't exist. I just don't see any evidence of it in my life.
Okay,
I've never encountered it personally.
So you would say, and this word gets a really bad connotation, but it's really not. But you would say that you're ignorant on whether or not God exists or doesn't exist.
Ignorant. I don't know if ignorant is the correct word, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not in a position to know.
Right. Well, and that is not. I'm not using that word as a
No, no,
derogatory
I
word.
understand that
Right.
ignorance isn't really a negative thing.
Yeah, because I can say without a doubt, I'm ignorant of 99.5% of what there is to know.
Me too, probably.
I, on my best day, will know 1% of what I need to know. And so I'm doing my very best from my very limited perspective. And actually, speaking of which, that is our topic today. But before we get into our topic, we always like to start off with a friendly fire round. Okay. So,
yeah.
first question I want to ask you is, what is your favorite fast food, or do you even have fast food in
Oh yeah,
Denmark?
pizza would be my way to go.
Do you have like Domino's or Pizza Hut or anything like that?
I have a Pizza Hut, but it's really not that popular. And Domino's, I think they have that in Copenhagen, but not here.
Okay, and let's see, where would you spend the last month of your life?
Last month of my life.
Any
Probably
country?
Any country.
Not in Denmark, obviously. Has to be exotic.
Well, that would be probably Italy or Spain.
Okay.
I think, or America. There are many places in America I would go. I wouldn't want to live there, obviously.
I say you might get shot.
Reasons.
In America, you might get shot like on your 27th or 25th day, so that you might want to stay away.
Well, then it would have been an experience, I think.
Okay. Well, here's the really big question. Here's the question I want to know: is if you were going to die at the hands of any fictional horror character, who would you want to die at the hands of?
A fictional horror character?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you know, it's not exactly horror, but I'm reading this by now 17 book series called the Dresden Files, and it's filled to the brim with horrific characters. And yeah, I think I would like to be taken out of this life by a succubus.
There you go. A succubus. Wow, there you go. Actually, the best answer officially on that topic has been Yahweh. Another atheist said Yahweh of the Bible, so that's really good. Lee,
yeah.
Lee, you were a great guest. You're welcome on anytime, mate. I look forward to another talk with you, Lee. Okay, Lee is half Korean, half Chinese or something, because he has the name Lee in there somehow. So he's Asian somewhere down the line. But okay, but before we get started, I would like if you could tell me anything like very unique or special about Denmark, Danish customs or history. We already know you guys like to kill and pillage places.
Yeah, well,
but
we did.
Okay, so can you give me any background information on that country? Because I got to be honest, you might be the first Dane I've ever talked. You're a great Dane. You're a great person, so I want to call you a great Dane. That means you're a dog. Thanks. And we eat dogs in South Korea. So anyway, it's on you.
But yeah, I've seen a lot of YouTube channels that of Americans who travel here and discover the Danish concept of hygge, which is a concept that I think maybe it exists other places, but it's an institution which is a thing where you spend good time with family or friends, and this it's a big word, really, where it is about doing things you like, eating and drinking, and not necessarily alcohol, but it's in there. It's what you do around the holidays, or you do it with family at specific times of year, or when you feel like it. It's a end of the week thing, Friday, Saturday thing, and it's about staying inside, putting on your woolen socks and cuddling up with people you like, maybe watching a
Wow.
movie or something like that. It
And
is.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because Denmark is great, but let's be honest, the weather kind of stinks here most of the time because it's either raining or it is really cold, and yeah, then you have times of year where you can be outside when it's when it's good. It's good around summer, of course, but we are hardy people, so you could also go to a restaurant in dead of winter and sit outside, and we'll bring space heaters and sit with blankets and
Wow.
do the cozy hygge thing.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, really, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I actually, someone said in here that you sound Finnish, and I got to spend a couple of weeks in Finland.
oh
I'm a member of this website called Couchsurfing, and
yeah,
have you ever heard of it?
no, can't say I have.
Darth Dawkins. I am a believer, sir. But he says I'm an atheist, like two atheists talking to each other. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, Bible believer. I love Jesus Christ, and I'm here sharing his love. And I don't drop profanity on my guests like you do, Darth. So find somewhere else to troll, please. Okay. That being said, so when I went to Finland, I had hosted these people in South Korea, and couchsurfing is, since we're talking about perspective, I will talk about this. Uh, Couchsurfing, it allows you to open up your home to people, and
Oh yeah,
so people can come stay with you. And
yep.
so I hosted literally about 300 people. So when I went to Europe, this is totally true. In 2 months in Europe, I think about either 3 or 4 nights I needed to stay at a hotel because I was just jumping around.
Yeah,
I was just jumping around, staying with the people who I hosted. And so another time I went to Israel, and same thing. I was there for about 30 days, and I was there for about 30 days, and I only needed to stay 3 nights in a hotel. So that was pretty nice. But anyway, when I went to visit them, she told me this, and I told you this joke, and I'm not sure if you got it, but she said that there's a joke like, how do you know when you meet an outgoing Finnish person? And
yeah.
so,
You
they're
look at your feet, of
staring
course.
at your feet. Yeah, they're staring
Yeah,
at your feet, and they're not staring at your own feet. And I don't know. I guess that might be like a cultural thing about
yeah, yeah.
just
Well, I've I've
yeah.
had lots of
And,
contact with Americans in my life, professors at university and people I've met online, and especially the professor. He talked about his faux pas when he went to Denmark in the first couple of months. He would go on a bus and try to strike up conversation with a Dane on the bus, and that was that does not fly here. That's not what we do. Don't talk to strangers, and we don't want to hear about your day, and we do not care what you have to say. That's just how we are, and the whole "how do you do" thing is not the thing we do. It seems disingenuous to us. Did we lose the stream?
Hey, Mikkel, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Okay, so that being said, in South Korea, here's something interesting about South Korea. In South Korea, you cannot look into someone's, or you shouldn't look into someone's eyes if it's like a more serious conversation.
Does
So,
does it matter who the person is?
if I'm with you, look at or maybe looking at, and
I can't really hear you, Isaiah.
Mikkel,
Yep.
that I'm going to join from my phone so that doesn't happen again. But okay, by the way, if Darth Dawkins, his real name is Gary. Gary, if you're listening, I feel sorry to any atheists who you curse out. Okay, so yeah. All right. So that being said, I'm gonna, okay. This is much better.
Much better.
I fixed this. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I had some issues right there. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Can
See,
you
now
hear
I
me?
can't. Something. Okay. So the first question I have is, how do you handle like seeing things from different person's perspective on an issue, like you in your own personal life?
In my personal life, well,
Yeah.
I've most of my career or working life, I've been working with people. People has
Mm-hmm.
been, and communication has been a one of the most important avenues of my work, because I work in psychiatrics. So
Mm-hmm.
communication is key. Talking about what how we understand the world and how we um, have different perspectives, and it's important naturally in this avenue, because many of my patients have issues about what reality is. And they have had, most of them, quite bleak and troublesome childhoods, and this
Right.
has, of course, affected their way of viewing the world and viewing what is and is not okay. So,
Right.
uh, so for the past 20 years, I've been working in psychiatrics in one form or another. Currently, I'm working in a forensic unit. That is to say, a place where the patients have they have all of them some diagnosis, usually paranoid schizophrenia, and they have all of them committed some crime, be it violence, murder, rape, and
Wow.
yeah. So yeah, and usually this crime they commit is a direct result of their experience with the world, them being psychotic in the act, or their skewed worldview that drives them to do these things. And the only thing that keeps them from doing these things is psychiatric treatment and medication.
Mhm.
Usually we see that people who stay away from drugs tend to their medication and go to their appointed times with their doctor. They usually stay on the straight and narrow. It's difficult for them because they have a different, very different view of the world. One of my patients actually thinks he's a god. Another
Really?
patient, yes.
Well, you should tell him that God doesn't exist because you're an atheist, and then that'll straighten him out.
He knows.
No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
He knows. I've tried to correct his reality like this because, yeah. And we have another guy. He thinks he's a shaman, and he has the feeling that the medication he gets prevents him from being himself. And every time he gets these injections every 3 weeks, and in the immediate time after, he usually uses a lot of drugs, meth, and yeah. So
you said methamphetamine?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm from Bakersfield, California, and Bakersfield, California is like the meth capital, maybe of all America, but definitely of California. It is like, it's just known for that. So I've seen some people do some crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. I mean, my niece's aunt was pregnant and 9 months pregnant, and her boyfriend strangled her and cut the baby out of her and then killed the baby as well. So, but he was pretty messed up by methamphetamine. So that can make you do some pretty messed up stuff. But
it can.
So I cannot remember where exactly this is, and I hope it comes to my mind. But it was about this guy, and his brother had some kind of schizophrenia. And I mean, his brother would be like perfectly fine 1 minute, and then the next minute he would start talking about some like really bizarre stuff. And I think there was like a lot of tension there because he in the past would like try to disprove him or argue with him and stuff. And so he found that the most compassionate thing he could do was kind of like just talk to him in the little world that he was in, and just not really be judgmental towards him, and just trying to be there for him, you know. And so he told me, or I'm not sure if I saw it on YouTube or I talked to him, but he was saying that he was able to have a lot of a lot of progress whenever he was not really like going along with it, but just kind of like not really just immediately trying to, kind of like asking him follow-up questions, like about whatever he was seeing, and just trying to, so that was interesting. So, okay, so I want to ask you one quick question. Have you ever gotten yourself into a situation where Danish culture clashed with others, maybe American or in another country or in Denmark?
Well, no, not really abroad. As I've seen, mostly I've been traveling in Europe. So maybe my experience is a bit too close to home, I think. Though if you travel to Southern Europe, I've been as far away as Cyprus. It's real different. But usually I've been in vacation spots, so they are geared towards tourists. The longest time I've stayed in a foreign country was in England, and English people and Danish people are not that far apart. Have the same sort of dark humor, and yeah, so that was not much of a clash. And I worked in a nursing home when I was there, so usually I spent my time with old people, and I tried to learn from the experience, so I didn't really want to clash with anyone, I think. So it didn't happen, I think, by design. And well, I think I've tried for the most part of my life to be attentive of what other people say or do, and try to see if I could fit in, I think.
So
that is not to say that
so
that I can't clash with people. I can, obviously.
yeah. So your mentality is kind of like when in Rome, do as the Romans do, or when in Cyprus, do as the Cyprusese people do.
Yeah. Well,
you kind of try to fit in.
Maybe. Well, I think because I come from a very small country, so I'm cognizant of the fact that we might not be the norm. So from the get-go, I think I'm trying to find out what would be acceptable to other people as a rule, and I'm curious as to how other people see me, see the world. So yeah, I think that may be one of the things that has created this situation for me. So.
Hey, just to break this up for a second,
Yep.
do you remember when Donald Trump wanted to buy Greenland from Denmark?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They didn't want to sell it, so he got really
hard here. Yeah, it was.
I bet.
Yeah, it was a good laugh.
We laughed about him in America, and pretty sure in South Korea here too. There's a lot of, actually, like, you'd find the most of the people who are expats like myself, like, we're not the diehard American like Trumpism right wing Christian nationalist,
No.
I do consider myself somewhat more of a social libertarian, because I do believe that God has given us free will. And so I do believe that, like, unless you're out killing people, obviously, if you're the Vikings, obviously, we should have locked up the Vikings if we could. But, even in that, just real quick, from what I understand about like Denmark and Norway, pretty much Norway has like the best idea of the prison system, is that
Yes.
their idea is to rehabilitate. And like,
yes.
I've seen some of those guys, like, prison cells. They're better than my apartment. That's not really saying much, because I have a pretty crummy apartment, but their places were really nice. They had like little condos,
Yes.
and they were really focused on trying to get them.
I suspect you've seen Halden prison, isn't it?
Holland?
Halden prison in Norway.
Oh, okay, yeah, I think that's it. Right.
Yeah, it's a maximum security thing in Norway, and they parade it around, I think. So it's the most modern and best prison they have. So naturally they'll show us that.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure if that's
Denmark. In Denmark, prisons aren't that nice. It's not horrible.
Oh, they're not as bad.
No. And
but there's
Denmark has been on notice.
Good.
Yeah, Denmark has been on notice by the EU because of our use of isolation prison. We put
Mm-hmm.
prisoners into isolation, and it was worse back in the 90s, I think, but we still do it for some reason. I'm not really.
Well, because it's an unfortunate reality. Like I would say, probably like 99% of the population wouldn't have to be in an isolation unit. In America,
No.
it's called a SHU unit. It's called Secure
Yeah.
Housing Unit, and so
Yeah.
basically, it's like a lockdown, like 23 out of like 24 hours out of the day, and you have like 1 hour outside. But these are the people that, like, it doesn't matter what kind of like additional benefits that you might give them to not be violent, like they're going to be violent. They are, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what it is, they're going to find a way to cause violence. And so people
Yeah.
like that, for their own safety as well, it's not just the safety of others, for their own safety, kind of like you have to do that too. It's an unfortunate reality, but okay. So here's a big one I want you to think about for a second. But how important is it to consider others' upbringing in conversations or like in interactions? Like, how
Well,
important do you think that is?
Very. Again, in my current job, I've been there for almost 3 years, and all my conversations with patients, I know all of them have had difficult childhoods, difficult upbringing, and may have some skewed views on how the world works or how you should
Authority?
act. Yeah, no, not only that. Currently, I'm the primary care person for a young fella, 20 years old, and he's lived in and out of institutions since around his teens, and he has massive issues. He started smoking cigarettes at the age of 6.
Wow.
And he started using drugs at the age of 7. And there isn't a drug on this planet he hasn't tried. And he's 20 years old now. And we've been speaking for months and months now about the concept of having good parents, having parents that protect you, having parents who teach you what it means to be a functioning adult or a functioning person. And he has never had that. And he when we started talking about this, he told me he had a good and secure childhood up until his parents got divorced. And they were divorced when he was 12. Yeah, they were divorced when he was 12. But mind you, he already abused drugs at the age of 7.
That's unbelievable.
So clearly there was something wrong from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah. So this has skewed his view of what normalcy is.
Right.
And as I don't know if you had the chance to look at what Marshall Rosenberg talks about.
No, I haven't.
It's an American psychologist who talks about what it means to communicate non-violently. And some of the things he talks about is we've been very good for the past 5,000 years of playing the game of who's right.
Mm-hmm.
And when you play this game of who's right, you tend to categorize people in those who do the right thing and those who do the wrong thing. And those who do the wrong thing deserve punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And this has shaped our world. And he also speaks about these the Nuremberg Trials after the
Really?
World War II. Yeah.
Right.
And some of the people who were on trial, also there were people who were on trial in Jerusalem. they were asked if it was difficult for them to sign the death warrant of thousands of people, and they said no, it wasn't, because of the language they used. They talked about them as subhumans. They talked about them as deserving of all the ills because they were the problem. They were the ones who created the ills of our society, and thus they deserve to die. So language and perspective on people matters, how we treat others. So massively important. So yeah, I would say the perspective thing is probably one of the most important things in life if we want to succeed at being charitable to one another. Perspective is hugely important to learn to see that maybe other people can do things a different way, and that's okay, as long as they don't kill you or take your shit.
So so recently I told you about, I had an experience where I was with my wife, and there were three bus stops, and the first bus stop, I knew that we were supposed to get off at the second bus stop, but she got off at the first bus stop, and I was just like rolling my eyes like, oh God, what is she doing? I said, it's not till the next one, and she did it anyway. So then as we started going to the next one, I guess I didn't press the button, and so I got dropped off at the third one. And I got out of there, and I'm like, where the heck am I? I'm like, and then I started to think about it. I'm like, oh, maybe my wife was right. Like maybe that was the stop I needed to get off at. So I was walking back to where I needed to go, and I'm like, I felt like a really big idiot. But by the time I got back there, she was there. And I thought, wow, this is a situation where we were both wrong. Like we were both wrong in a situation, and yet we still got to the same exact place at the same exact time. And so I thought there might be situations where, because you're looking at a situation and you think, I'm right, and they're wrong, they're wrong. And so what happens when you do that is it makes your thinking very fuzzy. Like, so for example, if I think that you're an atheist and you're not going to understand morality the way that I understand morality, like I'm already off on a wrong foot there, right? Because I could just take a look at the life of Jesus. When Jesus was out walking around, it was the religious people who had like the biggest issues, who were the most immoral people, and it was the non-religious people who often understood his message and who understood like love and compassion better than the religious people. So it's totally possible that, right?
Yeah, it's true that it's hugely important to be I forget the word.
Charitable?
No, curious about other people. To be curious and not to assume that you know what's going on. So you ask questions. Try to see if your assumptions are correct. Because the minute you think you are right,
and they're wrong.
You feel sorry?
And they're wrong too. Not just that I'm right, they're wrong.
Yeah, and they're wrong. Then the thinking stops, and you might not realize that you actually are wrong, or you're both are wrong, or some variant of it. So some of my time at university, we were taught to, when we speak to patients, the most important thing is to be always curious, never to think that we know all about the person you're sitting across from, because you might not have asked the correct questions. And so it can be a trap to lull yourself into this thing where you think you know all you need to know.
Yeah.
So
Hey, I do want to say something just off topic. You speak English really well. I was really surprised talking to you.
yeah,
Do you
thank you.
think that that's something that most Danes are able to do?
Yes, we are taught English from the third grade, because
Wow.
trouble is for us that we speak a language that not many people do. So
Yeah.
we are taught at least two languages, usually English, and later on German or French, and later on maybe Spanish, or yeah, depending on
Wow.
what you did in.
That's great.
Yeah, so
That's great.
well, I can understand German, but don't have me speak it. so
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. And here's something totally off topic, but when did you start to go bald?
at around 33, I think.
Whoa. Yeah, I got like a entire decade on you. When I was about 23 years old, it started receding, but I was doing the comb forward for a while. It was
Oh
working for a
no,
while, but
oh no,
but
the
then
comb over.
but then I started losing so much in the middle, I couldn't pull it off anymore. So okay, so let's see. I want to get to the next question, but I do want to. Before I do want to tell you that one of the reasons why I started to cut it off to go bald is because in South Korea they just started telling me like, "Oh, you're going bald," and I'm like, yeah, because their culture is just very direct. They'll just say
Yeah,
like, "Oh, you have a big nose," or "You're fat," or something like that. It's a
yeah,
and of course we would find it totally rude, like totally rude. But then as Westerners, we do stuff that they think is just totally obnoxious, like
yeah.
totally unforgivably, egregiously obnoxious. And so
Of
I think
course.
when you're dealing with especially people of other culture or different sex or different age, you got to just like understand, like, I can't go and have a conversation with a 23-year-old person and think that I'm going to have like a level playing field. Like that's not
No,
reasonable,
no.
Just today, someone was responding on Facebook to a post, and I looked at their profile and they're like 18 years old. And I was just like, hey, time out. I'm like, hey, you're really smart for your age. I'm like, your parents obviously
Yeah,
did a really good job for you. And I'm like, you're doing a good job to evaluate this. And I told him, I said, your parents should be really proud of you. Because I had no idea that this person was in high school. So, for
no.
being in high school, kind of
Yeah,
like you got to
well,
meet the person where they're at.
yeah, yeah. I'll say that schools have gotten better since I went to school.
Hmm.
No doubt about it. My son is way better prepared for life than I was when I went to school.
Right.
So
Your son is 25?
yeah, he's so.
And my daughter turns 4 in 2 hours. So I'm really excited about that. Okay.
Just wait until she turns 25 and see if you understand anything
Right, right.
about
Mhm.
what her life is like, and she will tell you
Yeah.
that you don't understand
So,
crap.
so I do have a question to ask you is why is there such difficulty in accepting others' positions? Why do you find that that's something that most people like have a really hard time doing?
Well, I think oftentimes we get bogged down in our own position, and it's again a game of being right. I think don't like to be wrong. It's uncomfortable to be wrong, to be told that we are wrong, and have the
Right.
feeling that we might not have it on the ball. So it's a thing. It's uncomfortable to feel it, and I think it's an exercise to be okay with not knowing things or admitting, yeah, I might have been wrong in this perspective or this issue.
Mhm.
So, yeah, And yeah, it's about being flexible. I think flexibility of
Right.
thought helps.
See, that's one of those things right there. Like, if you would have tried to have corrected me at the age of 23, I would literally have a physical reaction. I
Yeah,
would get like, you could see right here, I would get
yeah,
veins popping out of my head. I would get red. I could literally go into like a rage. And so now I am 39 years old, and I've realized as I look back now in the last, especially the first 30, 35 years of my life, like, I was wrong more often than I was right, you know? And
yeah,
so when I think about that right now, it's like, okay, I maybe in 20 years, I'm going to have a completely different perspective than I do right now.
yes,
And the
of
things that
course.
I hold on to, that I'm
Yeah,
dogmatic about, like, I might be totally wrong. So there is a gentleman in who was on here. His name is Gary, and he's very violent towards atheists. He likes to drop profanity on them. He likes to speak
yeah,
down to them, and he likes to mute them. You might see him down there. His name is Darth. His name is Darth Dawkins. His real name is
yeah.
Gary Milne.
I've seen
Yeah.
him before.
So yeah. So he gets in a conversation. It's, I'm right. I know everything. You're an
Yeah,
effing idiot. You're an effing loser. And so those
yeah,
aren't the conversations I want to have. Like, how am I reflecting Jesus Christ if that's the way that I'm speaking to you? You know, like I think
you
about
aren't.
this. Like, yeah, you're a child of God. So if you were to slap my daughter and then come over to me and like, hey, Isaiah, let's go out for a hamburger, like, and you think I'm not going to take into consideration that you just slapped my daughter? You know what I mean? Like, you and I
Yeah,
aren't going to be civil with each other. We're probably going to have to step
no,
outside, me and you. So it's
yeah,
like, that's the way I see God has, we're his creations here on this planet, and it's my job to love them and try to accept them where they're at right now, and to try to be an example of Jesus and his light and his love. And so this is the way I do
yeah,
it through this podcast. And yeah, I
yeah,
really appreciate you participating.
yeah. Ch- Being charitable to other people is a good thing. It costs nothing. My grandmother always taught me that being courteous costs nothing but breath, and
Mm,
it
from your
usually
grandma.
it usually yeah, it usually relieves tension, or if you can show another person courtesy,
Mhm.
it will usually bring the conversation or the situation to a happier place. So
Sure.
even if they
Yeah,
are unpleasant to you, still try to be courteous.
sure. And so going on to the next question, this is interesting. This is a really interesting one. I really am eager to get your opinion on this because uh, yeah, just what you're a little bit, you're a few years older than me. So how do you go about accepting you're wrong, that you're wrong in a situation, or changing as a result? Because you can figure out that you're wrong, but that doesn't mean that you're
Yeah.
going to change. Like, and I'm going to give you an example, because after I became a Christian, I went to counseling for 1 year. Like, I had some really deep-seated issues from my past. And my
Yes.
counselor told me this. She told me that she had never seen somebody go through the counseling process the way that I did, because she said I accomplished in 1 year what it would take other people 2 to 3 years to accomplish. And she said,
Mm.
she says, Isaiah, like, I could talk to someone for literally 2 years, and they completely understand they can articulate everything that they've learned, but it will not change their life at all. So
Yeah.
it's like, first, they always say, like, the first step into recognizing that you have a problem is to admit you have a problem. Because if you don't admit
Yeah.
you have a problem, then how are you going to change it, right? So,
Yeah.
but even after you do that, unless you're willing to actually change your actions, like, all the epiphanies, all the knowledge, all the counseling in the world isn't going to help you. So how do you personally
No.
do that yourself?
Well, I think it's difficult. It's difficult because I've lived a life, and I've obviously not been without problems. I think all of us experience problems in our lives, and I think many times it's a thing you have to work through. I've been in therapy too because I had to, due to experiences I had, and due to my education, because there's this thing when you study psychology at university in Denmark, you have to go into therapy.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went in. We had 10 sessions where because if I'm going to be a person who would be able to help others, I would need to sort out my own crap.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So I can't bring in my own issues into my patients. It's just not how it goes. So yeah.
But hold on. So if you can model so 1 second. If you can model that it's possible to change and that you're willing to make the change, I think that makes you a much better teacher, honestly.
Yes. True. And I think one of the important things is that not to be dogmatic in one's thinking.
Right.
Not being inflexible. Not being. I think I have an adult son now, and for the past 10 years or so, increasingly he has challenged me to modify my thinking, because he goes out into the world and has his own experiences and comes home, and we talk a lot. We are talking family. All of our family members are people who likes to talk. So he has challenged me on my assumptions and place in life, and I was stuck in a rut some years ago, and actually conversations with him has helped me. So I think recognizing that my child is able to bring something into my life is important. Not to neglect or belittle him because he's 21 years younger than I am. He has experiences, and he's lived his life, and he has perspectives.
And you know what? Sorry.
Yeah, of course, I have perspectives that he does not, and he also comes to talk to me about his issues and the problems in his life, and he benefits from that, and he talks to his mother as well, obviously. So, and
hey,
other
Mikkel,
people in
hold on,
our family. Yeah.
1 second. By the way, I have to say this. I would hate to have you as a father.
Why?
Because did you ever see The Big Bang Theory?
Yes.
Okay, well, so the main character's mother is a psychologist, and she's always psychoanalyzing him. So I'm sorry, that's it. That's it. You like, hey, Dad, I'm having this girl problem, and your dad's like, hey, tell me about your relationship with your mother.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a joke for you. That's a total joke, by the way. You seem like a great guy.
Yeah, I know.
So do you know what a Freudian slip is?
Yes.
Okay, so here's a Freudian slip: is when you go to say one thing, but you accidentally say a mother.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yes.
All right. Instead of another, a mother. Okay. I'm not sure if that translated into. That came out in the translation. Okay. So, all right. So I want to move on to maybe the last question.
Yes.
Really want to thank you for, your input so far. And before I do that, I just want to talk about God for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
What what do you think would be the most compelling evidence, just personally, for God's existence, right, that you've seen? And what do you think would be the most compelling evidence for his non-existence, in your opinion?
Well, the issue is for me that I don't know that I can say either way if he exists. So
sure.
I reserve my right to accept his existence if ever evidence is presented to me. But I don't know what the evidence would be, to be sure.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let me try to answer this from a perspective of an atheist, because I was an atheist for a while. But I would have said, so I would have said the number one thing that made it like impossible for me to believe that a God existed was the existence of evil. But on the other hand, probably the most compelling evidence that I thought was out there was the vastness of the universe. Because if the universe was like, let's say like the universe was like this big, right? And so we're in like this little bubble, like let's say like a snow globe. And
yes,
let's just say this little small area existed. You could maybe think that, okay, maybe somehow or never this happened to come about by chance or whatever. But when you look into the complexity and how big the universe is, like our minds can't even comprehend it. So to me, it's like the fact that it's so big and so mysterious, that to me, in my own personal opinion back then, was what made it kind of like, okay, well, maybe there's something out there, you know. But that's just what I would tell you from a former atheist. So can you just spitball anything?
Yeah, well, the enormity of our universe and seemingly the rarity of life seems an argument against, as I see it. Why would God create this enormous cosmos if we are the only people? Not to say that God couldn't be creating life left and right, but that is to say, all the traditional arguments I've heard have left me wanting. I haven't heard any arguments yet. There are those who say that it's so spectacularly unlikely that life would exist without a God, and they go into these probabilities in the billions and millions and things I don't really understand. So maybe the issue is that I don't understand the issue. So it can be. I'm not saying that it may be that I would never be able to understand it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your opinion. And we get to the last question now: is how do you personally navigate friends or family with opposing views, or maybe a coworker or something like that? So.
Opposing views politically, on God, or
on God, on the workplace, just I mean, okay, look, it's like this. Hold on, stop. Because I can tell you, I don't always agree with myself. Like I don't agree with the actions that I do. So if I don't agree with my own actions and my own thoughts all of the time, what's the likelihood that I'm going to totally get along 100% or see exactly like someone else? So we're all, this is going to be a constant issue. You know what I mean? No matter if you're a Christian or an atheist or a socialist or agnostic or a Dane or a Finnish person, we're going to run into these problems regardless, you know?
Yes. Well, I was always taught in my education that every time you meet a new person or every time you have a conversation with a person, it's a cultural meeting. It's an exchange of ideas. It's an exchange of culture. and even within our own country, there are different cultures, and I think this is an important thing to do. Maybe try to consider what other people bring to the table, or bring out in you, or you bring out in them. I have family members who differ quite extremely with me on political views. My mother and stepfather, they would be Trump people if they lived in America, and I despise.
Right.
I despise their political views, but I love them as people. And I've spent lots of time talking to them about the way they view the world. They have this. I've talked to my big sister about this. They live in fear of the world. They live in fear of things that aren't as they like them to be, or how they understand the world. So it's a fear thing. They're always afraid, and they watch the news constantly, and they stress about it, and it's a big source of problems for them. And every time we talk to them, have you heard about this, and have you seen this, and blah blah blah, and this and that happened, and oh, the world is dangerous, and it's just so disheartening, I think. And I sometimes talk to my mother about this and tell her, maybe for a couple of days, go off the news cycles, and
Right.
be able to breathe more easily. And
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's healthy to live in fear like they do.
Yeah, and you know what? I will say this. One of the things that has always really gotten me is that I have to analyze this, that I have my views and my positions because I've had the experiences that I've had, you know.
Yes.
God knows that if I would have had some different experiences, my thoughts would be different on things. So when I interact with someone, I say, this person is the sum of all of their experiences to now. The people who they know, their parents, their mothers, who all never meet. And so I have to take a bit of humility in approaching that and saying that, hey, I have no idea how this person is going to interpret what I'm saying. They may be interpreting it like, for example, let's suppose I called God our Heavenly Father, and I'm talking to a person who has had a father who was abusive, either physically or sexually to them, as kind of like maybe some of the people you're talking about. Well, even mentioning that concept of having a Heavenly Father, it totally throws it off, you know? You know what I mean? That's
true.
So you just have to take that into consideration, that you know, there's a wide range of people's experiences that we just don't know about. We have our own individual experience, and it makes sense to us, you know. And so, like, I do want to give you one quick example from the Gospels, and you know, talk about that. By the way, Mikkel seems nice, but I'm an idiot. Dart, Gary, I'm not going to call you Dart. Your name is Gary Milne. Gary says you are an idiot. The Bible says in James, because you were quoting James the other day, that when you insult someone, you're insulting someone created in God's image, Gary. So you should really watch the way that you do that to atheists and to Christians, because that's not nice. You're not reflecting Jesus Christ. So, okay, so now he kind of threw me off here for a second. I actually lost my idea. Oh, actually, I will tell you a quick story, because whenever I went to Finland, these people got onto the bus with me, and the woman was wearing, like, we call it a wife beater, but it's like a tank top. So it's a really bad word. You know, where it's like, and she wasn't wearing a bra, and she kind of had like all of these like sunburns on her, and she was with a guy, and they were being really loud and really obnoxious. and she like
Yeah.
farted like in front of me. And so later on, I went to the people who I was staying with, and I was like, I told them about, and I'm like, I thought like you Finnish people were all like super cultured and super like, you know what I mean, know all about history and five. I mean, she spoke like 5 or 6 different languages. She was part Ukrainian, and so she's like, well, we have those people here, you know. I mean, they use, I hate this word, I'm going to put in quotations, but it's white trash. They're like, we have white trash here.
I think they
I
are
hate to use that.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they are
That's
everywhere.
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. You're saying those people exist even in Denmark. So
They do.
yeah, so
They do.
yeah, I really wish I would have remembered that last point I wanted to say, but you know, I do want to close off by if you have any last thoughts right now that you'd like to get out there, I'd really like to hear any last.
Just to round it off, I think it's important to remember to be curious with people and not assume that you know. It's been an experience for me to learn this, and yeah, and I would really recommend that if you take the time, there's a lecture by Marshall Rosenberg where he talks about this nonviolent communication. It's a 3-hour long thing, but it's
wow.
It's an amazing experience to hear him talk, because he has been working as a conflict resolution dude for the most of his life. Well, a person who he travels around the world. He travels around the world. It's a small thing. Sometimes he talks to couples who have had conflict in their marriage for maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years, and he promises 20 minutes after people are able to tell him what the other person needs, he can solve the problem. And he says this is the same problem or the same tactic you can use when you are speaking to warring tribes, because he traveled around in Africa where people have been killing them each other left and right for generations, and he wondered, some people want to perpetuate this killing thing or keeping up the conflict, and others don't. And what's going on with the people who don't want this? Why are some people able to let go? And he talked to these people and developed this whole way of thinking, talking from the heart, not being a jackal, as he called it.
A jackal, like Darth Gary. His name is Gary. He likes to hide behind the screen of Darth Dawkins and Richard Dawkins. But your name is Gary, and you're so cowardly. You won't even show your face, Gary. So that's a pretty cowardly thing to do. But yeah, okay. I do want to thank you for that. I am sorry that we had a troll here, but they say don't feed the trolls because they'll bite you. Yeah. But I just couldn't resist because this is not the first time he showed up trolling here. So I happened to catch him this time.
I've seen him too. I've seen him speak to others too. So yeah, usually it's not pleasant.
Yeah. So actually, Gary, he says he really likes you, by the way. He's been saying you're a really nice guy. So Gary, I would highly suggest that you talk to Mikkel here, because I feel the love of Jesus Christ in this guy 100 times more than I see it in you. So I see nothing but hatred and condescending and vitriol, trying to attack people. And this guy seems like I would take this guy over you any day of the week. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Jesus Christ, you probably talk to Mikkel or Michael, whatever the hell your name is.
Yeah.
One last thing, you got a really nice looking shaped head. You got like a perfectly we call it egg head.
Yeah. I
not,
actually had a
not,
friend. I had a friend some years ago who we had been out drinking, and we got to his house, and he was just standing there looking at my head, and then he grabbed my head and said, "You have a nice shaped head, man."
it is. It's really good.
and then
Yeah,
he proceeded
rub it.
to shave off my hair. No, he shaved off my hair.
Oh wow.
And the
You
next
know what?
day I had to walk home in 10 degrees freezing weather,
Yeah,
minus 10 degrees centigrade with no hat on, and I don't know.
yeah.
It
I
was
know.
an
I have about
experience.
10 different hats here because it does get really
Yeah,
cold here. So I do have to
yeah.
cover my head whenever I go outside. It's snowing right now. So yeah, you know what? I
Oh,
really want to thank you. I really want to thank you for your time. And I do want to say this, that yeah, we really do need to have more respectful conversations like this,
sure,
because
sure.
I can tell you this positively. I would wager my life on the fact that, and I have wagered my life on the fact that God does exist, because I've personally experienced him. And so if
Yep.
you haven't had those experiences, like, it would be totally unreasonable for me to expect you to believe in that. Like, let's just say
Yeah,
Thor was the real God. Okay, just hypothetically speaking, if Thor was a real God, and I've never experienced Thor, I've never experienced his lightning and his hammer, or Freya or Odin. If I never experienced any of those, it would be completely unreasonable for someone else to hold me to that standard. Say like I'm an idiot, or I'm
yeah.
an immoral person because I haven't had those experiences. So it's like, if you haven't had those, I totally get it. And it's,
I
you've
have.
seen me a little bit online, sometimes debating some
Yes.
atheists, but like, my issue is like, okay, if you don't believe, like, I have zero issue whatsoever. Like, that's like a
Yeah,
default position. But whenever you
yeah.
assault someone's intelligence or someone's integrity because they believe differently than you, that's where I have a problem with like militant fascist atheism. I call it evangelical atheism. That's my term I've
Well,
created.
I think there is such a thing, really.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah, but yeah, but I have deep issues with some of Christianity. I
sure,
have to say.
sure. I have deep issues with atheism myself.
I know, I know. You've said that you think atheism is a cult, and I think it's a silly argument.
Well, I mean, I will say this in 2 minutes. I will give a 2 minute summation why I do believe that it's cult. Well, first of all, it's more the extreme thinking of the evangelical atheism is what I call it. That side is actually very abusive, and it does have very cultish type thinking. So if you just don't believe, then I wouldn't say that. But it's more of the, not only do we not believe, but you're an idiot and you're psychotic for believing. So I have been
Yeah.
called mentally unstable and an idiot and a liar for my beliefs. And so
Well,
that right there is really cultish thinking. I mean, I've had people, you can hear my daughter right there. I've had atheists talk about my daughter in the most disgusting, vile language around a bunch of
okay.
other atheists, and no one has stepped in and said anything. So if that's the way you're thinking and behaving, absolutely that is cultish. Absolutely, I would call that cultish behavior. But that's kind of more in line with what I'm talking about, which is the evangelical abusive type atheism. So,
Yeah,
but anyway, but if you're willing to have conversations,
I
but
am.
Darth, I would call Darth an absolute cultist, though. Darth
Okay.
Dawkins, Gary Milne, is an absolute cultist. I will call him out right now. As a Christian, the way that this guy behaves and thinks is, I mean, you could flat out see him down in South America, like committing suicide with a bunch of people, because that kind of abusive and narcissistic way of thinking is exactly what Jim Jones had. So, yeah, you should not
Okay.
be a narcissist. You
I
should
don't
have
know
humility.
him like that. I don't know. I've only seen him on some some other channels. I think he's been on the Atheist Experience, I think.
Well,
Um,
anytime you have abusive and narcissistic thinking, it can lead you down into that line. So if we can have conversations here, then we don't need to bring in abusive language or words like cult. But whenever you're going after people and abusing them, and that is really, really cultish thinking. So, but anyway, I really want to thank you for your time, and I definitely look forward to seeing you back again, man. You're a great guest. Really appreciate the time, and I know you got to get going right now. So check us out at www.rhepodcast.com. You can check us out at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify. Just about everywhere you can find someone, you can find us.
Everywhere.
And we're going to leave you with this outro, and we look forward to seeing you back again. We look forward to seeing you back again.